Welcome back to Tryhard Tuesday, everyone. This is the second episode, and today we will not have live gameplay. We will have a replay session. This past weekend, I decided to play a legacy challenge. I wanted to be proactive. I wanted to dictate the pace of the game. I wanted to take advantage of Eldrazi's rise. I wanted to take advantage of winning the die roll. I just felt like I chose violence, right? So I wanted to play Mono Red Prison. And when you're choosing this deck, you kind of need to check some boxes for it to make sense. It kind of goes for every deck, to be honest. But let's try to go through what do you need right now to be competitive in Legacy, right? You need to not lose to the graveyard. You need to have game against Delver. You need to be good against Daze or reasonable against Daze. You need to be not bad against Blood Moon. And you need to have, Eldrazi on your calendar. So Mono Red Prison checks a lot of these boxes, some better than others, of course. And I think you have some choices to make when you're creating the deck, basically. So how many moons do you play? Well, in my opinion, when you choose this deck, it's because you think Blood Moon is a good card in the metagame, and you think Chalice of the Void is a good card in the metagame, right? So I kind of wanted to stay true to that by playing the full 8 moons, while that's basically something that adds a lot of variance, right? Variance in the sense that sometimes you get more free wins, but you also get more mid-game duds off the top of your deck. So some bad comes with the good. There's always another side of the coin. That's how it works, basically. But I wanted to stay true to that. As I said, Chalice of the Void for 1. If that is potent, this deck is viable alongside the Blood Moon. So let's say everybody was playing basics, like monocolored decks or prismatic Vista mana bases and a bunch of 2-drops and a bunch of Abrupt Decays. Then this deck is probably not very good. But they're not, so this deck is good. Of course, we have our acceleration from Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, Chromox, and Simian Spirit Guide. And then I've actually chosen to scale down a little bit on the double-faced lands here. So they're obviously very good with Fury and Chromox, with them being red and then occasionally being something you can cast. But I actually feel like I want to preserve my life total just a little bit more than the classic versions, because after all, we are a deck that is trying to tap Ancient Tomb over and over and draw cards with the One Ring. Speaking of the One Ring, that's just a great card to kind of undo your mulligans or bury your opponent in card advantage. You have Fury. It's very awesome that you have this draw engine, and then you have free spells on top of it. Fury is a card that can compensate for you being behind on board. And of course, those 2 cards are amazing with Broadside Bombardier, which really is just like such a good finisher for the deck alongside Pyrogoyf. Fable of the Mirberg is kind of your glue card where sometimes, you filter some draws, you get a better, mana to spell ratio. Sometimes, if left unchecked, the mana advantage is good. And the creature you flip it into, once it becomes the reflection, is insane with Bombardiers, Pyrogoyf, and Fury. So it's kind of, not that great on face value, but underneath there is a ton of value. So that's more or less the main deck. I didn't, reinvent the wheel or anything here, but I did take a decision when it comes to how many double-faced lands do I want. Sideboard-wise with the deck, it can be kind of complicated to build. So first of all, you need Graveyard Hate. I've opted for Pharmacope. I think that card is the most punishing when your opponent doesn't know about it. Your opponent will try and, go for their Oops combo, go for their Breakfast combo, go for their Reanimation, and it's a very, very good tempo card in all of these cases. Sometimes it's just straight up wins the game. Downside, of course, is it can get stripped by Thoughtseize. Downside is if your opponent has one more bullet in the chamber, it can be kind of bad, but I like it for now. Let's say you're playing Mono Red Prison every day of the week and twice on Sundays, so people can scout you, or maybe everybody knows you at your local store. Then I would mix it up with Leyline, sometimes a combination of Hearse plus either the Runestone or Ghost Vacuum and stuff like that. I play a single copy of Dismember. I have later on decided to cut that card. I did make a few changes after evaluating my tournament run. I have updated the guide, uploaded the guide on Patreon for the full 75 matchups and all these thoughts about card choices. So if you want to check that out, be my guest. That would be awesome. I will link down below. The Charmos are good against, Eldrazi, decent in the mirror. Maybe you play against some Cloud Post or whatever. Fiery Confluence is a Swiss Army knife card. Sometimes it kills some small stuff. Sometimes it beats the opponent by just, doming them for 6. Sometimes you kill some artifacts. And then we have some game against combo here with Trinisphere and with Disruptor Flute, which is mainly a good card against Nado decks, namely Nomad, Painter decks, and Doomsday. So, yeah, all in all, I was pretty excited about this deck, and I went on a challenge run, and yeah, let's check out some highlights. All right, let's pick up the action here in round 1. This is game 3. I'm on the draw against Delver, what I believe is blue-red Delver. I have seen Tameo at this point, and so I guess just a standard Delver deck with, you know, some Hydroblast, some Consigned Memories. I'm battling forces, unclear about days. Some people like them on the play, some people don't like them at all, some people never like them against prison. So yeah, playing with suboptimal information here. We're on the draw. My hand can produce a turn 1 Chalice, so I think this is what I would call a forced keep. I will be competitive against medium draws, so I will probably lose to good draws. My opponent, straight out the gates here, hedges for Blood Moon. I have sideboarded out my Maguses because my opponent has Lightning Bolt, so it's just kind of annoying to have your prison piece being killed by Lightning Bolt. I draw one ring, which is a terrible draw. My hand is kind of forced here. I can choose to play incredibly slow against, potential days and try and dismember the Delver, but I decide to go for the gold here with Chalice. I think it's very important you don't outthink yourself out of these games. So if this Chalice resolves, it's awesome, but if it doesn't, you still have to, try and realize that potential. The Chalice does resolve, so obviously now we're straight up losing to something like Meltdown. But then again, realizing what you're losing against, it's good, but it's not, it shouldn't change your play all that much. I think the whole concept about playing around stuff is something you can challenge for sure. Knowing that it exists is obviously important, but you shouldn't go out of your way to and then delay yourself too much. So with this Bombardier resolving, what does this tell us about the opponent's hand? Chalice resolved, so that means no days, no force, no negation, right? No Meltdown because my opponent passed the turn. Broadside resolved, so kind of same thing. So my opponent at this point might just have a ton of 1-drops, which, to be honest, you'll keep any hand that goes turn 1 Delver with some cantrips and like a Hydroblast or whatever, right? So Bombardier gets in there. I'm not flinging anything right now. My opponent is fetching away a bad Delver flip. I was lucky to draw the land last turn. Let's see if I can repeat. I can't, but I do draw a Spirit Guide. So that is enough to play a Pyrogoyf and try and kill the Delver. At this point, a card like Consigned to Memory is a thing because the opponent can replicate it through Chalice, but I think it's for sure worth it. Especially with only a land in the graveyard, and if the Delver flips, it's out of Pyrogoyf range. So once again, it's kind of the same thing. Sure, the answer card exists, but if we respect it too much, we're already giving the opponent the credit without even them needing to have the card, basically. So lucky for me in this case, my opponent didn't have anything and just conceded here, so probably had, I don't know, six 1-drops in hand. It's very, very possible, or just drew a counter or whatever. So pretty smooth sailing here when it comes to the game. Obviously, we didn't have many hard decisions, but I just wanted to show the game anyway because it's kind of typical for you acknowledging that, oh, the opponent could have this and that, but what am I doing if I'm not, playing my cards out? Then I'm just losing slowly, right? So I asked my opponent the tough questions, and they had a 1-drop hand, and Chalice of the Void more or less won the game single-handedly. And we're off to a great start. Okay, this is round 2. I'm currently down a game. This is a mirror match. As you can see, my sideboard allows me to board out 4 Chalices and 3 Blood Moons. I'm keeping a single Blood Moon because imprinting it for Spirit Guide, pitching to Fury is more important than, having a random artifact for Bombardier, and I guess spiking, having the 1-of Chalice in your opener to shut down opposing Chrome Box. I think that's simply just too narrow. This keep is not amazing, but it's fine. The Fury can come back from the opponent playing out some creatures, and the Charmars are actually decent threats, killing opposing, sometimes Ancient Tomb, sometimes Red Lands, who knows. The Charmar here is not like it's perfect in the matchup, but it's fine. Also, we see here opponent is making a cool play, playing out the Chrome Box with Blood Moon Under proactively, so I'm trying to think about why you would do that. Maybe if the opponent thinks I could be, you know, playing at Chalice out turn 2, I don't know. So the opponent goes One Ring here, draws a card. That's obviously a huge advantage for the opponent. I decide to go for a Chamor here instead of going for my own One Ring. So what's the logic here? The logic is if I blow up that land and I keep up the pressure, I can then use my One Ring as some kind of time walk to win the race at some point. I'm really not sure this is the correct way to play. I think I should have gone One Ring here and try and match up with my opponent. Because the Chamor is so easy to kill with something like a Fury, but who knows? Let's see what the opponent goes for here. They have 5 mana. Fiery Confluence to the Dome. Okay. So I think I'm pretty happy to see that, but it's also kind of scary, right? So I play down my own One Ring. I kind of sense danger here. A cool little trick here is if you play the One Ring and trigger the protection, this Ancient Tomb will be pain-free afterwards. So I can even deploy a Fable, get in for 4. My opponent's now at 11. Drawing a ton of cards. Let's see what the opponent's doing here. Pyrogoyf. Killing off that one. Fury killing off that one. So pretty dominating here. And I'm down to 10. And I expect to die next turn. Fiery Confluence. Okay, that's not bad. So cool little trick here. I draw Fiery Confluence. Then, as a response to the second chapter, I draw with the One Ring. So now I basically have more stuff to filter in case I want to. But, you know, real champs, they just draw into lethal here, like it's no problem. So Bombardier, attack, that's down to 9. Fling the One Ring, that's 6 more damage. And then finish off things with a Fiery Confluence here. So pretty insane fast kill here out of nowhere. And I actually think I mis-sequenced with, I should have gone, I wish I would have played the One Ring first. I just felt it was so bad to go the One Ring second. But playing a creature that just gets killed by a 4-of in the opponent's deck and letting them draw, probably not that great either. So I got away with a little bit of murder here and tied up the score in the match. Game 3 was not exciting at all. My opponent stumbled a little bit and I killed their land with Chamor and easily won. So 2-0 start, and as you can see, very, very condensed decisions. Small decisions, but very, very important ones. Small amount, I should say, but very important ones. Let's see if we can keep it up. All right, round 3. This is game 3. I'm playing against the blue-black ninjas, which is very annoying because they play a ton of swamps, ton of islands, ton of fetches. So all of the moons that I could possibly cut, I have in my sideboard. This hand is nothing special. This hand has turn 2 Fable, but, you know, it'll have to do. I don't think that deck is a wasteland deck, but of course I lead with the mountain. So I pitch a Spirit Guide to play Fable here. Super sad if my opponent has a blast, but they don't, so I get to resolve the Shaman. Opponent with a Brainstorm here. Didn't find what they wanted, I bet. So now I have a decision with Fable. Let's see. It looks like these Fiery Confluences aren't that great. This is my land. This is a threat in case I don't hit Acceleration. This is my threat if I do hit Acceleration. I realize I have an attack here that gets me a mana, so I hope I'm discarding 2 Confluences here. Yeah, discarding 2 Confluences here is a good play. One attack first to basically get this Fatal Push out of my opponent. It turned out to be a Snuff Out. That's totally fine. So I think what I go here is Fable. Mainly because it's like, I expect my next card I play to get dealt with, and this is my worst card in hand. That's like the first reason. Also, if it does not get dealt with, it will kind of combo with the other Fable later on. So I play that card without respecting Daze. Could have imprinted Bombardier, obviously, but I don't think that's how you play. Opponent is passing once more, and this kind of smells like Bowmasters. Let's see, yeah. Yeah, they want a Bowmaster here, so thankfully Fable is worded in a way where I'm not committed, so I can just say no to this. So now I decide to Fury off those 2 cards, and I do that because if this works and I don't get consigned, or don't get forced, then I'm willing to sacrifice the treasure and play my One Ring on second main phase. But let's say the Bowmaster stays in play, I'm less inclined to play like that. So the opponent does have Consign. So again, a little bit of sequencing here. Never hurt anybody. And because my opponent already pinged the Shaman once, I didn't want to attack. But next turn, I'm fine attacking because then I'm trading with 2 creatures instead of 1. I'm fairly confident my opponent blocks with the Orc Army if I attack there. Also, staying back against the Ninja deck is never bad. My opponent, in the meantime, finds a Flyer, so that is kind of out of the window now, but it was for sure a good call. So now my reflection flips, and then all of a sudden, yeah, I like my position here. I can advantageously attack with my token here and get a mana. My opponent goes for the double block. I'm reasonably happy to see that. So here I will imprint, play around days, and jam the One Ring. Let's see if that resolves. If that resolves, I feel like I'm winning this game. But it gets forced, and that's also, you know, that's reasonable. My opponent is left with 1 card and an Ornithopter, so big advantage bar here for the home team. Opponent with the fetch, and this has some kind of ninja written all over it. Let's see which one it is. Okay, the Infiltrator, 2/3, draw a card. That's something that I can at the very least stall against, so pretty happy with that. Okay, well, that is a very, very good card because now I can play Pyrogoyf, and if it resolves, I don't think my opponent will have anything, so I will shoot my opponent, and then I can kind of be the annoying player here and attack first. So now what I didn't realize was if my opponent blocks here, they actually have Revolt from Fatal Push. But thankfully, I think I realized in time here, and I pass the turn, and then on their upkeep, I will try and copy my Pyrogoyf. My opponent does not have it, and they take a ton of damage here. So pretty smooth sailing here. The Fables are just unassumingly great, right? They just slowly and surely grind a little bit of advantage, fix my draws a little bit, and then a kind of a combo kill of my opponent out of nowhere. Of course, drawing the Pyrogoyf after not having nothing is you know, not bad. But these 2 cards together, let's just say I have 5 mana on my opponent's end step. I can just make a bunch of copies, untap and attack, and it's kind of like a pseudo combo, kind of like Splinter Twin back in the days. So 2 reflections, definitely awesome. And yeah, that means I'm 3-0. So whew, I'm feeling very, very confident at this point. And yeah, let's see if I can keep it up. Round 4, I'm playing against Doomsday. This is game 3, and I'm on the play, which is very, very good news. I have turn 1 Chalice here, so I'm keeping the hand no matter what. Hopefully I can follow up with some Bombardier clocking. Pitching a Spirit Guide, playing a Chalice. My opponent's already on a Mold to 6, so either it's going to be good against some cards in my opponent's hand, or they kind of have to bite the sour apple and force it, which would be decent as well. I did see that my opponent's version is the Personal Tutor with Cabal Ritual, so they can still have a turn 2 Doomsday here. I draw Soul Land, and I decide to get the show rolling here. So let's try and do a little bit of math here. So I attack with Bombardiers down to 18. They will fetch end of turn because of Surveil Land. That's 17. Then if they resolve a Doomsday, they're down to 8. That means that my attack down to 6, play Pyrogoyf, and then fling the Pyrogoyf is actually lethal next turn. So if they go Doomsday pass, I'm winning the game on the spot. And they didn't have the force for the Chalice, or didn't want to. I mean, who knows, right? And speaking of the devil, here's Cabal Ritual Doomsday. Well, it's kind of beautiful at this point, right? If my opponent has the Force of Will for the Pyrogoyf, I'm not winning. And if they don't, I'm winning. So pretty standard stuff here. Let's see what I can draw here. Ooh, yes, Chalice of the Void. I remember this. So what kind of pile are you making here? If you're the opponent, what kind of pile are you working with? If you have to beat a Chalice, so obviously the green cyclers are not here. Unclear how many of those they play. I'm actually not sure. It could be 1, could be 2. So let's say my opponent draws, then it's 4 cards in the deck. Then they need 2 cyclers. And then cast the Oracle. Oh. At this point, I'm basically saying, I think your pile is trying to rely on Lotus Petal, But with two Lotus Petals out there, I mean, who knows? But anyway, I decided to play the Chalice first for 0, because if my opponent has made a pile that kind of needs 0 drops to work, they will counter it, and then I have lethal. So since the Pyroglyph actually kills them, and this card is a, speculative, disruptive piece, I decided to play that first and let my opponent force if they have it. But they don't, so, well, they decide not to at least. So now I'll play Pyroglyph, and if my opponent doesn't have it, and the game is just over on turn 3. So the point of this game is basically that this kills so incredibly fast that your opponent really doesn't have much time. Turn 1 Chalice, turn 2 Bombardier, turn 3 Pyroglyph, lethal. Even though the opponent actually executed their game plan to some extent, right? Even have Chalice with 0 in play. It's just very, very high pressure. So obviously I lose to something. Well, I lose to exactly Force of Will here. I think even Days would put back my opponent too much here. Let's see. Then if that happens, they have to return that's under City. Then I fling a Chalice and I kill them next turn. So, I mean, just a lot of pressure. But with that being said, this hand would probably have lost to a single Force of Will and a turn 3 kill. So it's definitely high variance what's going on here, but I really, really like it. And what I also like is being 4-0 in a 6-round tournament. So let's see what we have in store for round 5. Alrighty. It's time for round 5. I'm playing against Reanimator, and I'm up a game. On my sideboard, I have my Blood Moons. Magus is a body. Magus sacrifices to Bombardier. Magus sometimes gets the opponent, but it's not something that I want to count on. And of course, I brought in my Graveyard Tate. I also sideboarded out Furies for a Dismember and a couple of Tray Balls, it looks like. So I'm mulliganing this hand, and I'm obviously keeping this hand, but I have to put something on the bottom here. So let's think here. So why is Dismember good against my opponent? Dismember is good against my opponent because of Troll of Casa Doom, and it's speculative against, Baragorth that I have yet to see, of course. It's a bit redundant with Fairy Macabre in the sense that if my opponent goes Cycle Troll, Reanimate, I have that covered with Fairy Macabre, which could be good, if you can deal with the Troll with Dismember and then later on using Fairy Macabre against, actual Entomb, Atraxa, Entomb, Archon. But I actually think I'm bottoming the Dismember here. I want to keep a lot of threats to kind of stick one at some point. Dismember goes back into the deck. The opponent goes land pass. So do I. Here I'm begging for turn 1 Entomb, I must say. Entomb, Archon. I mean, that's what I'm hoping will happen. I believe my opponent was on a mulligan here. Let's see. Maybe we're not learning that here. Yeah, we're both on a mulligan. Fair enough. Opponent draws with Brainstorm. Fetcher with Flooded Strand, not Delta. So my opponent is sitting on non-basics, worth mentioning. And they try and reanimate turn 2. I have the Macabre, so I basically trade 0 mana for an Entomb and a Reanimate, which is quite amazing. So now I decided to play Pyroglyph to put my opponent under pressure. Also, if my opponent has a Dazed, this is the card that I want Dazed. So I do get Dazed here, and now Pyroglyph is actually a card on the side of my opponent if they have Reanimation. I get wasted. I'm lucky to draw land. My opponent replays the land. And I'm lucky to draw land again, so definitely not complaining about that. Getting a One Ring into play. Getting wasted again is not a problem with the One Ring in play. Ton of life to work with. And now I can Magus my opponent. Here comes Troll after basic Swamp, but no Reanimation. So, I mean, right now the world is kind of my oyster. So something I could have thought about here was... so I had a decision here. Attacking first or deploying Pyroglyph first. If my opponent has exactly Orcish Bowmasters, killing the Magus on combat, would I then prefer that this Ancient Tomb becomes unlocked for second main phase, or would I have preferred to use it before as a red source? Here, the reason is if my opponent has Bowmaster, I want to kill it right away with Pyrogoyf to basically develop a big threat and unlock my ring for next turn. So that's why a sequence like this, let's say I didn't have, I was lower on life and I didn't have the one ring or whatever, then maybe you want to use your mana before they potentially turn back into normal lands. Here's Pyrogoyf. My opponent's down to 13. And I'm also playing out a Chrome Mox. I'm trying to think about why. Why am I playing out this Chrome Mox? Unsure. Opponent with the Desperation Brainstorm. They go for the Troll of Casa Doom. And now I untap and draw 4 cards, with the one ring. I double shoot the Troll. I think that's definitely a play worth making here. So at this stage, am I even losing to, let's see, we got rid of Archon. Am I even losing to Atraxa? I mean, it's possible I'm losing to Atraxa here. But there's the message from my opponent. Good luck in the top 8. And yeah, Swift 5-0 here. Going through, let's see, Delver, the Mirror, Ninjas, Doomsday, and Reanimator. So pretty sick gauntlet to just smoke out of nowhere. And love to see it. The red deck was for sure performing. Round 6, I decided to concede to my opponent and make some dinner. And next up is the quarterfinals. All right, quarterfinals time. Game 3. I'm on the draw versus Dimir Tempo. I don't think this is Delver. I think this is Nethergoyf, Tameo, stuff like that. So what do we think about this hand? This hand has either turn 1 Chalice or turn 1 Tray Ball. Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Marshflat's Pass. So, Marshflat's Pass. My opponent has up Consign. They're holding up Hydroblast. And here's actually my read. So, I don't think my opponent will have Daze in their deck. This is why I play like this. I play Chalice of the Void for 2 reasons. One reason being, if it resolves, I think that's incredible for me. Second reason is, if it doesn't resolve, the chance of my next turn Transfer resolving is much bigger, and I think that's a reasonable hedge to make here. And also Bombardier is such a good card, excuse me, that I don't want to imprint it if I can help it. So I'm lucky that this challenge resolves and my opponent has to pass the turn. So what does my opponent have here? I'm sad I clicked a lot here. So obviously they must have a lot of 1-drops, but what kind of 2-drops can they work with? And of course, Orcish Bowmasters is the answer. So obviously they respond to this Trinisphere. I want to mention that my opponent could have had Consign here and replicated it through the Chalice. That was definitely possible. Oh, okay. The Trinisphere gets forced. So maybe my opponent... Oh, even with the Daze. Okay, so lots of stuff here I didn't fully consider. So my opponent must either have had Force or Daze last turn. Maybe neglected not to... I guess they could have had Naked Force in theory, and then drew the Daze. Or they're simply saying, well, I can play through Chalice for 1 and just protect with Force of Will, but let's see. I decided to pass the turn here and not Fury my opponent's board, where I could have done that. Oh, crap. And here's the punishment. Here's Kaito. Very, very good card here. So, funnily enough, let's just try and learn something here. The Trinisphere I played last turn, there's a chance I should have played this Chrome Mox out first, because let's imagine this Tray Ball resolves. My opponent does the same thing here. And I need to kill the Kaito, but then all of a sudden I have to sack my Chalice in order to kill it. But now, since Trinisphere is not on the table, I can play a free Mox and kill it. So it just worked out here, but I think it would have been better to play Naked Chrome Mox in anticipation of exactly Bowmaster plus Kaito, in case I was 100%... Oh, I misclicked. I hope it doesn't mess up here. In case I was 100% on top of my game, I think I play like that. So instead... I actually find a Fury line here. Doesn't matter. The point is, if I could see in the crystal ball that this Chrome Mox could have some usage the following turn, then it costing 3 mana on the Trinisphere is a deal breaker. So I get wasted here. My opponent with no play, so it could look like my opponent's only plan was exactly the Force of Will Bowmaster Kaito. So here I decide to yeah, this play looks a bit peculiar, but I'll try and explain it here. So I play out the Chromox here before combat in anticipation of another Bowmaster. Let's say my opponent Bowmasters pings the broadside, then I can kill the Bowmasters before blocks and get through with Menace here. So I really like that play, and my opponent did have the Bowmasters, so that was pretty darn awesome. Killing that off, throwing the Mox into the cannon, and bombard away. Hopefully no ninja here. Yeah, no ninja, so that's very good for me. I draw a tray ball that doesn't do anything. The race is kind of on here, so the game gets very, very scrappy. My good news is my opponent has a bunch of 1-drops that are bad, but they also have that card, which is pretty darn strong. So 5/6 Baragoyf. I draw the land, and I decide to hold back a turn here. Kind of get the Fable going. I'm taking the damage down to 3. My opponent mills over only another Goyf, thankfully, so that's pretty good for me. I decide to keep the cards here. I believe I have lethal. Let's see. Oh, I don't have lethal. I just kill the Baragoyf, I guess. So play the One Ring, draw a card, get in for 4. My opponent decides to block. I will kill the Baragoyf. I'm now controlling the board. My opponent needs a good draw. They don't find it, and the game is over here, and I'm on to the semis. So very, very high pressure, especially once you start taking hits from Baragoyf. You really have to close out the game. Yeah, I mean, very, very cool game here. I think my opponent could have forced a challenge, but they didn't, because they actually had a good plan of double Bowmasters and Kaito, plus a Wasteland. So lucky for me, they had to force the Training Sphere with that plan, and then I kind of cleared the way that way, and I even got the value from the chalice all the way from turn 1, where, you know, all the Ponders, all the Brainstorms, all the Pushes, all the Tamios, all the Nethergoyfs are just uncastable in my opponent's hand, and chances are they had at least 3 or 4 of those when they threw in the towel. But yeah, as I said, semifinals time. All right, semifinals time. I'm down a game against a weird painter deck with a lot of Goyfs, Pyrogoyfs, and Baragoyfs. And I just noticed when I revealed my sideboard that I have a Dismember out there. That card was supposed to be in my deck, that's for darn sure. Also, my opponent is an Urza Saga deck, so yeah, I'm not sure how I should have sideboarded here. But yeah, Dismember should probably be in there. Let me just put it that way. On the other hand, we also have a lot of, like, Fiery Confluence can blow up a lot of things. Chalice is even good because my opponent has, you know, a bunch of 1-drops. It's kind of a weird matchup. It was hard to sideboard against. That's definitely kudos to my opponent here. So as I said, we're down a game, so I'm keeping this hand. My opponent's on a mulligan. My lands are kind of annoying, but hopefully we can kind of stop our opponent from doing a bunch of things here. Turn 1 Chalice for 1. My opponent goes turn 1 Fable. Pretty strong turn 1. That's something that my deck is also interested in doing. I play out the One Ring. I draw into a Fury, and now I have a decision to make. Do I Fury that card? So I guess the replay just answered. I did not Fury that card. I was kind of waiting for hopefully killing one more card. So the opponent sacrificed a treasure in order to play the Dragon Engine, and not just sacking a land. What does that tell us? That's kind of strange. But anyway, it looks like I'm getting mileage out of my Fury here. Drawing 2 cards, drawing 2 bad cards, that is. Imprinting. Here's Bombardier, so now I can kind of make a very, very cool turn here. Get in for 2. Then play the Fury, kill the board, and dome for 7. So I'm loving life here. How can I possibly lose? Right? Right, guys? Can't lose. And here I decide to play out this Chrome because I'm going to go Chalice for 0. The Chrome is something I can use for Bombardier later. Chalice for 0 against my opponent's Quad Pedal 1 Opal deck is, you know, serviceable. And here's the Surveil. Opponent mills over Painter. Let's see. Here comes Pyrogoyf. Pyrogoyf killing the Bombardier. But I'm untapping, drawing a ton of cards. Problem is, those were not good cards. I killed Kikijiki. My opponent bolts, not because they missed the chalice, but to grow the Pyrogoyf, and then attacked down to 8. And with a One Ring coming on the following upkeep, and this Pyrogoyf dealing me 6 damage thanks to Pyrogoyf, I'm dead here. So extend the hand, GG's. The opponent is, heading to the finals, and I'm heading to the showers here after a sweet run. Also note that the bolt there dealt 1 more damage on attack, 1 more for this trigger, so that's the difference between getting me to -1 or getting me to 1 here post the One Ring trigger. And then basically from there, all I have to do is draw a Broadside Bombardier, and then I win the game. So my opponent played very well, 0 cards in hand, extended all of their resources to exactly get me dead before dying themselves. So kudos to my opponent for playing both a cool deck and playing like a champ here. And that will conclude this video. As you can see, Mono Red Prison is like, it's so fast, it punishes so hard. The games are over fast, so your key decisions are, hand evaluation, keep mulligan in the context of the matchup. How do you sequence out your lands? Do you hedge against Wasteland? How do you sequence your spells? Do you hedge against Force of Will? Do you hedge against removal? Which card are you allowed to play slow to play your next best card first, or do you have to press the gas pedal? And I will say, I think if you get those wrong, or only get half of them right, I don't think you're gonna do well with this deck simply. So that's what I would practice a lot if I was an aspiring mono red gamer, is getting the kind of figuring out how much can I squeeze here and how much can I hedge here. That's the biggest thing about Mono Red Prison. With that said, thanks so much for watching. I always have a fun time going through these matches, a day or two after I played them, because chances are I was sleeping at the wheel sometimes. Sometimes I get amazed and I was like, oh, nice play I made, like past me mate. And it's just good learnings, right? So I hope you guys feel the same, and I hope to see you back on the channel soon. Thanks so much for watching.